All right, everyone, welcome back to episode 11.4 of the Overlanding Newbie. If you haven't checked out 11.1 through 3, it'll give you a little bit more background about what we're doing here, but this is my introductory videos on using the Gaia navigation app. So in this video, what I wanted to do was share a little bit about layers and what the layers are, what my favorite layers are, how to add layers within the Gaia online tools. So let's take a look. I'll do a little bit of screen sharing and show you what I'm talking about.
All right, let's jump into layers. So again, layers is really just another term for the maps within Gaia. And the reason it's referred to as layers is you can actually layer the maps on top of each other so that you can see different features from the multiple maps all in one view. So first of all, let me just show you again how you get into and access the layers. So over here in our layers icon, it's going to open up, and this is going to, what it does, when it does open up, it's going to open up to your most recent viewed layers. So right now, and then in the top section, it's going to have the active layer that you have going on. So right now I only have one layer, and it's the base Gaia Topo layer. And then these are the other layers that I use pretty frequently, so they're just kind of up in here. But if you ever wanted to look for or find additional map layers, you would come down here to add map layers. You could do the search function. You can do the activity type of filtering here. You can filter it by these different groups that they have down here as well. So tons of ways to search that information and a ton of layers. It is a lot of fun to go exploring in there. So let me just talk to you about the layers that I use and what I like about them, and then I'll show you a little bit about how we can layer them on top of each other. So Gaia Topo is really just kind of my favorite base layer. If I'm going anywhere to initially start looking at anything, I start with Gaia Topo. That's really Gaia's proprietary map. They manage all of the data within it. It's always getting updated, and I do trust it a lot. However, there is a lot of information you can gain from other maps as well. So the MVUM map is a big one. So the other thing I'll show you here is, you see I just clicked on MVUM. It brought it up. It brought it up on top of the Gaia Topo. So now if I click Gaia Topo, it throws Gaia Topo on top of the NVUM. The order that you see these up here is the order in which it is going to be most prominently viewed when you're looking at the layers. So again, there for a second, I had it this way. You can just layer more and more and more on here. You're going to find, though, that really 2 or 3 is going to be about the most that you will have much visibility here. And then these blue bars are what is designed to show the impact of each layer. Because maps like MVUM only show the actual roads, this map really just includes just this road information. So it needs a base map. So even when the Gaia Topo is not on, it still keeps the Gaia Topo in the background of it. So MVUM is the motor vehicle use map. So this is going to show you maps, or this is going to show you roads that are designated by the U.S. Forest Service for motor vehicle use and what their designation is for. So really quickly, let me turn off my route so that we don't see this. So what is showing up on this particular map from the MVUM is just this piece and just these roads. These lighter shaded roads over here are part of the Gaia base map, Gaia Topo base map. So you're going to find that there are sometimes these oddball, one little section of a road is designated by the U.S. Forest Service with MVM information. If you click on it, it's going to open it up. It's going to tell you where it is. It's going to tell you what it's open to and the seasons that it's open to. If I were to click on this location here, you see it does not have that information because that's not being fed by the motor vehicle use map that is here. If you are looking for the motor vehicle use map, you can go right on into the Forest Service Topo Maps, and you can get all of that information. I've got a link to it so that you can link right there to it. So you can always make sure that you're pulling in the most recent or using the most recent motor vehicle use map. But Gaia's really good about updating it. So that's an important one. Again, we talked about Gaia Topo already. U.S. Forest Service is another Topo map. Again, you'll see where I'm at. Most of everything I'm doing is within U.S. Forest Service lands. So I use this one a lot. It looks very similar to Gaia Topo. However, and you'll see in a planning video I'm going to do, what Gaia Topo doesn't show you are things like gates that are on certain roads, and Gaia is going to navigate you right through that gate because it doesn't know that gate exists. So that is something that's really important. Again, I'll show you in kind of my planning video how to use that, but the U.S. Forest Service map is really good. I'll tell you, U.S. Forest Service updates their maps about every 2 to 7 years, depending on the content that is needing to be updated. There's also a USGS map, very similar. It updates every 3 years. I still prefer the U.S. Forest Service map because that's really where I'm working most of the time. I'll tell you the other one I use a lot is satellite. And obviously it just reflects just like a satellite. However, what I'll tell you is once you get in close, the visibility is not nearly as good. So if there's something I wanted to see, let's say like this location right here, I'm going to click on it on the map. I'm going to copy these coordinates here. And I really just prefer Google Maps, Google Satellite. So I'll come right over here. I'll click on my layers within the Google, and here now I can really zoom in and see much more detail than I was able to see when I was looking at the satellite within Gaia. That is my only downfall to Gaia, is that their satellite imagery, it just is not really good. And I'm imagining that is a conflict that they have with getting that Google imagery from the Google satellite. So that's another one. Another one I use a lot is I do a lot of mountain biking. So I like the Trail Forks is a company in and of itself that does a lot of mountain biking information. You can see in this area, they've got pre-designated tracks. They've got it all built out with their own color coding and a lot of information there. Speaking of color coding, I want to show you some information about keys here in a second as well. Nat Geo has a ton of, speaking of other layers, Nat Geo has a ton of maps that are very specific to heavily traveled tourist areas. So you can see there's not much here in my area. I use this fishing and river maps one a lot. Not a ton here, but Nat Geo has ones specific for the Grand Canyon area or Death Valley area. So you can go in and find some really specific Nat Geo stuff, and it will show you really regionalized good information about the area that you're in. And then lastly is Nat Geo Streets. Or sorry, not Nat Geo, Gaia Streets. So Gaia Streets is really just, it's a street map. You can use this if you wanted to set up navigation within an area. For instance, I'll show you, in and around my home. This is again folders and my saved waypoints. Here is a regional area around my house. Again, very much street map like. So if you're really just looking to use some street map stuff, the Gaia Streets is a good one. And then lastly, some important ones I use is private land, public land. And so let me show you let me get into a waypoint here that is going to be complementary to what I want to show you here. Rose Creek, let's go there. So if I go to my layers and now I want to show private land. So to me, this is really important because just because a route is available through a Forest Service road, just because a route is a designated MVUM, motor vehicle use designation, that does not mean that it may not have an easement through someone's private land. And whenever I'm looking at dispersed camping locations, I definitely don't want to do it on someone's private land. So in this case, you can use the private land overlay, private land layer, and it is going to go ahead and outline all of these private lands, and even very nicely tells you who's on public record for that particular private land. So I use that one a lot. Public land is kind of the inverse of private land, where it's showing you all of the green obviously is public land. And then lastly, the shaded relief layer is something that I use a lot as well. What it does is when you look at it here, it's going to kind of show you a little bit more visual than a topographic map might. My eyes are pretty keen on reading Topo Maps, but it does kind of show you a little bit more visual where you have canyons and elevation changes and things like that. So if you prefer to go this route, this is a good one for you to take a look at too. So lastly, what I want to show you is on each of these maps. Let me find my Gaia Topo and bring that back up. At any point, you can take a look at the keys. So if you go back, I've got my map open. If I click on the map up here, it's going to open up this. It's going to give you a description of what this layer is, and here's the key. But that key is pretty tough to read. So if I click on it, it opens up another window, and I can have all of this access right here. So the other thing I'll tell you when you start looking at Topo Maps, this key is specific to the Gaia Topo. When you look at, again, I use U.S. Forest Service a lot. If I go here, U.S. Forest Service, its key is real basic. Not a ton of information here, and there are certainly more symbols and things of that nature on this map than there are in that key. So what I have found is that let me find the right one here. This USGS topographic map symbol document is really good at helping you understand more of the keys or more of the symbols that are on that map. So I've got a link to that there in the description. I also have this great backpacker article on how to read Topo Maps if you want to get into that a little bit more as well. So links to all that in the description. Again, those are just the layers that I wanted to go over with you today, just some of my favorites. What I will do is I will do my next video is all going to be about my process. So how I go into an area, how I start looking at it, and what I start doing to plan out a route within a particular area. So check that out. Thanks for coming along for the ride.